Another day, another set of instructions. Call of Duty time, anybody? As with last time when we did the Doom instructions, please don't take any of this personally. I realize that you didn't have a whole lot of time to do this assignment. I kind of forced it on you, and you're having to work with people who aren't in the same room and blah, 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 blah. The way I mean the commentary, I think all of you did a good job considering the time and the restraints you had on it, but the way I mean the commentary is just to point out things that you can alter, things that you can change in your own work. The instructions assignment might be submitted, but you might want to revise it, and doing some of this, in addition to being good practice, might give you a bit better insight into what to do to your work. So let's look at them. Let's go ahead and start with the art group. First off, I'm happy to see that we have proper font usage, serif font for body text and serif font for the headings. There are some issues. I'm not sure why the serif font is so hard to read for me. I mean, Captain John Soap McTavish on page 2, that text kind of gets all crinkly looking. Maybe it's something to do with the PDF conversion, I don't know, or maybe it's the font itself. Something to look into, though. The headings are in a sans serif font. Cool. But it's a very light sans serif font, and it kind of disappears. I mean, look at story. At the very least, that should be in a darker color or bolded. But a thicker font would step out from the page a little bit better. As it is, it's a little bit hard to see. The paragraph under warning is long. And we know what happens with long paragraphs, right? There are images of the characters under the player characters, which is cool. But we're going text, picture, text, picture, text, picture. And the pictures are all different sizes and dimensions. If you can make these somehow uniform by cropping the pictures, something you can easily do inside Word, it would be better. And if you can shake up the arrangement of these things so it's not text, picture, text, picture, text, picture, that would be cool too. Sergeant Gary Sanderson, the top one on the second page, that font looks a lot smaller than the other fonts. We don't have pictures of the minor characters for whatever reason, and it would be helpful if we did. We have a nice control image here. And I know you didn't create these, you had to search for them, but this was a well-picked one. We have a very long bulleted list for the controls. And the problem with that is long bulleted lists tend to do the same thing as long paragraphs, the whole thing. Heads-up display has a picture which is smallish and doesn't have anything marked on it. So when it tells me in the text here, the lower right of the screen shows the ammo, left currently equipped gun, well, circling at that or marking that in some way would be preferable so I could actually tell the difference. I notice that these are referred to as figure 1 and 2 on that first page. There's no reference here whatsoever, and these all have a caption rather than the figure number. I know this was done as a group, but whenever you're writing with other people, you should really work on having consistency in the final document. That should probably be a job of this. When we get into the actual set of instructions, there are paragraphs, there are bulleted lists, but I don't see any steps taken in a specific order. I don't see numbered lists, and that's one of the things that needs to happen when we're talking instructions. it needs to have a clear organization to it because, well, the cell phone manual principle. I'll probably need to look for specific information at some point if I'm going back into it. And if it's a large section without numbered lists, small tasks, then that's going to be an issue. Yeah, I know you didn't create this information, you're just working with what you had, but it's just something to keep in mind for when you're working on your own, whether you're revising it or whatever. Notice on the last page, we stick with 2.5 lines. You probably don't want to do that. You probably want to work with the formatting so it all sticks on a full page rather than just dribbling on to the end. Dribble. That's a good word for it, right? Education group. See what happens when you have a bit of variety with the pictures of the player characters. Although I don't know who that guy at the bottom is. I suppose it would be clearer to someone. We have proper font use. I could see a much heavier heading font on this one too. It stands out better than the last one, but standing out a bit more would be a great idea. It's a very dark and cramped looking picture of the controls. We don't have pictures of the player character, so I don't really know how I'm going to know who is who. And having pictures of the player characters is going to be really helpful for someone who doesn't have a lot of direct experience, just like listing out components would be. If you're having someone set your broken leg and they don't have images of any of the tools they need, you might be in for a little bit of pain. There's a lot of extra space between this body text and the next heading, and for over here, not quite as much over here. And again, we don't have number lists. We have the heads-up display that doesn't have specific things marked, and it would be an easy way to go about doing that. Transportation. Transportation has a very distinct font for the headings, and that's cool. They're using lines to separate out sections, and that does add a different level of visual distinction. There are some long paragraphs on page 1. We don't have pictures of the characters in page 2, and that might help. But the overall feeling I get from these is this seems to be very cramped. When there's a ton of information crammed onto a page, it's going to be harder to pick out specific bits of information. Again, the cell phone manual principle. Knowing which button is which. I've never had a PlayStation. I don't know what button is where. Having that stuff spelled out would be a good idea. The bullets that are used, if you're going formal, you might want to go for a more formal looking bullet. The problem is when we get to the sub-level under for the record, those are kind of hard to see, aren't they? There are pictures, but there's not a lot of pictures here. And there are divisions within the list, but it could be more clearly visibly distinct into sections. I think when we're talking about the Doom, I could see a little subsection on room 1, subsection on room 2, subsection on room 3. And following that kind of thing throughout on any set of instructions would be a very good idea. Organizing stuff on the page, the visual document design is largely about making your organization and thus your priorities clear. Here, I'm seeing long lists. A lot of the work we do in this class is going to be kind of work in progress stuff, practice stuff designed to get the standards driven right into your brain. And hopefully doing this set of instructions and going over them help just a little bit. See ya.